America's backbone was built on blue-collar business grit, grind, and muscle. This is where you stop working for the business, and the business starts working for you.
Hey, this podcast is about the why, the O, the U. We're talking about you. Where your business goes, how much revenue you grows, how much you net for sure, your team, are your employees good? All of that is all about you. If you don't like it, you have to change the things in you. Chris, what do you think about that?
100%. I know you, Kevin. I know myself, and I know almost everybody on listening to this podcast right now does not like giving control, doesn't like someone telling them what to do. But that's exactly what you do is you give someone control to tell you what to do when you start making excuses and you don't take the full responsibility of what's happening. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it is 100% your decision that stuck you in the position that you're currently at. So if you're not making what you want, it's the decisions that you're executing on a daily basis, or it's the decisions that you aren't making. And majority of the time, we're not where we're at because of the decisions that we are not making. We're sticking it on the back burner. We're being indecisive. We're doing analysis paralysis, or maybe we just can't handle the hard. I heard you. It's funny, Kevin, you was talking about drinking your health shake, the green shakes, and you was talking about the kale and whatnot, and how some people will put honey and things in it to make it taste better. And how did you put it?
I want the edge.
You want the edge.
Yeah, I don't need kiwi and honey and all this. Like fuck all that. Just take it down. I want the edge. I like it when I'm done with it.
It lets you know that you're alive and that you're willing to do the hard, because the reality is you do have to choose the hard. It's anything with success is not going to be easy 100% of the time. Life's not easy. We've got to start making the right choices. And that's why this whole topic is about you. So what's some of the things right now, Kevin, that you feel like instantly people need, that we have seen through our time of mentorship, our time of business, and watching other people just mess around in their business and not really put their head to it? What's some of those things that comes to top of mind that you say, this is you, if you would do this, you would have a new control and you would start seeing progress?
I see about the same 5 things over and over. One is they try to do everything themselves. And let's face it, because I've been here. You're kind of egomaniac. You think you're the only one that can do everything good. Everybody's going to mess it up. And what happens is you never grow. You grow, but you never get to where you do. When you see people who are making millions of dollars, netting millions of dollars, most of the time you will see them much more relaxed than the guy who's netting $100,000.
Absolutely.
It's because they have people who they pay $120,000 a year to or something who do better at them than those tasks. That is a massive one right now. They learn how to leverage other people. They're okay hiring people. People say, oh, hiring smarter people, that's okay. But just say to yourself this, I'm going to hire somebody who's better than me at that. Clearly better than me at that. I know this for sure, that I have people on my team that are better than me at certain things for sure.
And I'll even say this because, it is an advantage if you can sit there and I say it's an advantage. That's really the wrong way to put it. There is situations where you would walk through the process and you would set up a standard operating process, record, document, all of that. But the majority of the time, really, we shouldn't even do that. We should hire someone that's an expert in that particular field, like accounting. Man, I don't know how to do any of that. I know how to look at a profit and loss and a balance sheet. I know, how to input some stuff in the QuickBooks because I had to teach myself when I did the startup. But the reality is if you plugged me into the bookkeeping at this point, at this stage in my game, I would mess stuff up so bad. But I've got people that know how to do that. And they literally, I tell them the goal. I just say, hey, I want to see this number. What do we need to do this? I need to know this data so that I can project going forward. Do we have this? No, we don't calculate it that way. Okay, well, what do we need to do to start calculating that way? I'm asking questions. They're over there giving me the answers because they understand how to work the system. They understand how to count the beans. And that's what we've got to remember is you don't have to know how to do it to delegate. You need to know how to find the person that knows how to do it. And then you need to know how to check. And how do you check? You give them an expectation. I want my books in order so that I can see what I'm making on each job, or what I can see what I'm making per week or per month. I want to know how much expenses. I want to know how long it's going to take you to do this job. Whatever it is, you just need to know what to expect, and that's how you measure so that you can delegate.
That's a major one. Another one is they do shit that matters. They don't waste time dilly-dallying. I'm going to give you a quick example of when I was younger and I was running around doing my business. I would always do the Home Depot trips, buying supplies on off hours, either very early in the morning or at night. When I see contractors at Home Depot thumbing around at 1 o'clock, I know they're not making any money. And I don't mean they're not making 100,000. I know they're not making $1 million. I'm not trying to judge people. They just wouldn't be there. Somebody else would be there for them, or they'd have some type of systems in place. They're more reacting like, oh, I need a hammer. Oh, I need this 2x4. They don't have their system set up. You need to have your day really dialed in and then figure out what are the things that really matter, and then they do them. Because if you're at Home Depot looking for wood in the middle of the day, you're not growing your business. You're not working on your business. You're just putting out fires and doing everything. You got to get to the things that matter. And that's what I find multimillionaires do. They're always doing stuff that matters.
They're more proactive because they've realized, and that's a level of discipline. And I'm going to say that would be the next point, is so many people lack the discipline that is needed to be able to run a business instead of being a solopreneur. The discipline of sitting there and saying, okay, what is happening tomorrow and what are the resources I'm going to need tomorrow? The discipline to stay the extra hour late and prep for the next day. The discipline to not pull up the phone and consume content on social media when they've got in between tasks. The discipline to sit there and level up in their skill set as they're riding from job to job, or as they're sitting and doing their service. Like, for instance, if you're on a lawnmower cutting, let's say you did the startup and you're on the lawnmower cutting. Are you listening to music? Are you listening to nothing? Or are you listening to audiobooks like this podcast right here, educating yourself? It's a level of discipline, and so many people lack it, and they wonder why they're not further ahead. It's because you've not educated yourself and put that level of discipline to get educated.
100%. You got to spend the time doing that. And it's just, I did this so much. I was doing so much that I felt like I didn't even have a minute to myself. I mean, I had a friend of mine recently. He used to cut grass with me. He used to work for me in the summers. And he was like, man, you're so much more relaxed now and you're doing so much more. He reminded me of a story when we get out of the truck. He was talking. He was a talker. He'd be talking to me. We'd get out of the truck. I'd start putting gas in the lawnmower. If he wasn't done with his story, I'd be like, wrap it up. I'd turn the mower on. Like, I can't listen to you for another 20 seconds. He was like, that shit would piss me off. It was so rude. But I used to be like, wrap it up. Let's go. And I would just start cutting lawns. My brother used to call me and I'd be like, this is Kevin, go. If my brother stuttered, I'd hang up and then he'd call back. I'd like, try it again. Let's go. 3-sec go. I had no time. And I was kind of being funny, but that's how I felt. Like, I wanted to maximize every minute and get more and more done. I could squeeze another lawn in. I could get another building in. Now you have to step back, see the big picture. Who can I get to do this better than me? How can I do this on a bigger scale? You can't really make much money with just you and a couple guys. That's a good starter business. There's nothing wrong with that. I admire the hustle, but you got to get to a point where you got multiple crews going.
And the only way to do that is to discipline your time. You gotta. It goes back. So I can't think of the book title right now. So actually, I'll look it up while I'm communicating on it. But it was talking about it's how to buy back your time, and it's a book that literally sits there and gives you the formula to find out what your time is worth, and then out of that buyback revenue, you sit there and start delegating to other individuals. And this is a step up over and over and over again to where before you know it, you've got a nice business that's running and you're only working on these really big dollar drivers. So like not going to Home Depot, but instead you're talking to the potential customer or client. Maybe you're not going to Home Depot, but instead you're talking to Home Depot corporate, negotiating bulk pricing. Like that's the difference between the time driver there. One task is more expensive than another task. You can hire someone to go and pick up materials for 12 to 15 bucks an hour, but you are going to pay more for the guy that's going to sit there and negotiate a bulk pricing with Home Depot corporate, or to sit there and sell your services to a big client. And you need to be working on those higher revenue problems and delegating the other things off.
It's the 20%. I believe if you're making 200 grand a year, if you change 20% of your day, 20% of the things you're doing, you can get to 600 grand. You can triple your income. So you don't have to do 3 times as much, because that's what I had in my mind when I started making 200 or 250. So wait, if I make 750, I got to work 3 times as hard. I was already killing myself. It's not that. You just have to, you're not going to work more. You just have to figure out what you're going to work more on and what you're going to work less on. It's the 80-20 rule. 20% of the stuff is what you need to work on. The other 80 kind of like takes care of itself. Delegate the 80. Get it done. Focus on the 20. That 20 is how you're going to triple your income. I know because it happened to me. But here's the thing. So say you go from 200 to 600 and you say, well, then what are you going to do? Guess what you're going to do? You're going to change another 20% of what you do, because you're going to have a new set of problems. You're going to have new things to worry about. That's how you're going to get to 1.8 million. This is how I did it. And then the number one thing, Chris and I always talk about this, you got to get around people. If you want to make $1 million a year, you better be hanging around with people who make pretty much, who don't think $1 million a year is much of anything.
That's it. It changes your belief system, dude. I mean, every single time I get around these individuals that are doing 8-9 figure businesses, they're giving $100,000 loan out is not a big deal. Some are like $500,000. We're just going to test the waters and see what it changes your belief system. And before you get desensitized to it. And but it's a good desensitizing compared to what you're getting over in the average crowd that's teaching you how to binge drink or binge Netflix or whatever the case is. It really is dependent upon your environment. You better make sure you're getting the right environment, or you better get in isolation until you find the right environment.
I'll tell you the silliest shit I did for so many years. And it's never about you comparing yourself to other people. So don't think that's what I'm talking about. It's about you versus you. What can the best version of you do? It's not all about money, but that's one indicator. But I used to make maybe twice as much as many of my friends, but maybe I was making 200 and they were making 100. Mm-hmm. And I really in my head was like, well, I'm killing it. Look at these guys, they're working jobs. And sometimes I kind of wore that like a badge of honor to myself. Mm-hmm. And then I had this mentor when I used to drink, and I had some drunk conversation with him. Maybe I was making 500,000 then. So nothing to sneeze at. And I told him that the next day. He was like, yeah, you got to stop drinking if you want to get to where you want to go. And I was thinking, well, I'll get there. I'm already making like 580,000. He was like, yeah. And he was like, the problem with you is you're comparing yourself to other people. So you think you're doing something, but really you should be doing like 5 million. So you're not doing so good at all. Because he's like, if you were hanging around with people who should be doing exactly what you're doing, you wouldn't feel like that at all. I remember that thing stung so bad because I knew that in my mind. Like everybody has this best version of themselves. And just because you hang out with people who aren't being their best version, you might think you're doing okay. You need to get around people who are doing their best versions. And then it's not about competing with Mark Evans, Mark Andrew, all these other guys. I'm not worrying about what they're doing. I want them to kill it. It just elevates you. Okay, we're all doing the best version we can. And then you're learning from each other. And the opposite is true. When you hang out with the guys binge drinking and wasting weekends and everything, if you're making like a little more than them, you might think you're doing something, but you're not for what you could be doing.
I'll tell you the other thing that I find pretty common amongst people that are not growing at a fast rate is they don't accept responsibility for everything in their lives. how many times have you heard somebody, man, you just can't find good help out there anymore. If I could find some good help, then I'd be able to scale. I'd be able to grow, but I just can't find anybody to pass the work off to. That's why I'm still stuck in the truck. Or you sit there and say, man, I would do more, but my customers, they can't afford more. They won't pay me more. Like, it's always an excuse. Every single thing is an excuse. And as soon as you pull back and you say, I'm the one that hired that employee that is not doing right. So is it a bad employee, or is it the fact that I didn't give him a process to follow? I didn't give him enough accountability to hold him accountable for the process that I gave him. Maybe I didn't give him the tools and equipment so he could represent and be confident and produce a good quality. Like, if you start turning it around and looking at what could I be doing better to fix this problem instead of what someone else could be doing better, most of your issues would get solved. But the problem is we are taught to blame the other person. Just look at look at the news, look at media. Everything's about how someone else is ruining our country. Someone else is ruining our economy, how hard it is to make it. The little man is so hard for them to make it. But if you'll turn it around and say, what can I do to better my financial situation? What can I do to get more work? What can I do to have better employees? What can I do to retain the employees that I have? What can I do? Like, how much strength would you feel like you had if you could sit here and take the absolute dumbest person on your team and turn them into a superstar? You're a beast if you can do that. Why don't you make that your challenge instead of saying that's your holdback?
Chris, you hit a nail on the head right there. I mean, it's so true. I was this person for very long, but if you go into any blue collar Facebook group and you put a post like, man, this new generation doesn't want to work, they're all lazy, you'll get 500 comments that all agree with you. But maybe it's these companies aren't really that good. Now, I agree with there's lazy people and all that. We all know this.
Sure.
But can you find 8 on this planet of 7 billion? Do you think you can? I think you can.
Yeah.
Make your company, think of a really bright guy who you know who's a friend of yours, who's working a job and likes his job. Would he come work for your company? I remember somebody asked me that, and I was like, no, he would not. Because it's the truth. I didn't have a company worth bringing somebody like that. Mm-hmm. So you have to create the culture and the job and the opportunity to bring those people, and then you have to deliver. And if you ever look at one of your worst employees and they leave, self-audit yourself. What type of effort did you do? Did you find this guy on Craigslist? Did you just hire this guy because you were behind? Did you just kind of throw him to the wolves? I know I did that all the time. I used to train guys with absolutely, basically I wanted them up and running in 30 minutes. I knew they were going to be slow, but I'm like, come on, man, it's not that hard. That was my attitude. Rather than now when we try to train subcontractors, we'll let them spend a couple of days and really work with people.
Right.
I think you got to take your time with them.
That at this point in my game, that's where I put my challenge at. It's like, what is the weakest person that you can take and you can make them look like a superstar? If you can take an extremely, what most people would call a weak person, a non-performing person, but you can make them look like a superstar, then you can build any business. You can build any team. I think about the fast food industry. They take entry-level positions and duplicate it over and over and over again. Why? It's because they built the systems and the accountability into their business model to where they can take anyone almost, and they can produce the exact same thing over and over again, and they get repeat customers. That's the challenge you should put to yourself. Then you're a magician. There's no holding you back when you realize you can take anything and build something from it. But instead we say, man, I haven't found the diamond to make the ring.
The most powerful thing you can do in life is blame everything back on yourself. If you do that, you take the power back. And I'm talking about anything. So if you have a bad employee, if you didn't hit $1 million in sales, you didn't hit $3 million in sales, blame it back on yourself. What could you have done differently? What team members could you have hired or anything? And I'm talking about anything in life. If you married someone and they turned out to be kind of a horrible person, I mean, whose ass told you to marry them? That was you.
That's it. That's
You
it.
blame yourself on that. You made that mistake. So learn from your mistakes. And I mean, I hired so many bad people when I look. I mean, who hired them? It was me. I didn't.
Man.
There's always going to be a couple people that don't pan out and it doesn't make any sense. Keep it moving. Then you should be digging that well. But there were so many people I hired that, I mean, let's face it. I didn't do the due diligence. It was like Thursday and I was behind and I'm like, man, I need somebody to come out tomorrow. Who's coming?
Yeah, we've all
and
done
then,
it.
wow, surprise. This guy got off his couch after 3 months and he wasn't a stellar employee. He has a bad attitude. How could I ever have seen that coming?
Yep. Every one of us has done it. All right, look, if y'all want more information like this, y'all need to plug into the boardroom where me and Kevin sit here and we mentor you for a solid hour every single week. There's a vault that you can plug into and you can get the documents of how we've done step by step in scaling our businesses to multi-million-dollar businesses. This involves the marketing, the sales, the recruiting, the operations, the finance department. I'm talking about we literally pull back the skirt where you can see every bit of it, and it's located in the boardroom. If you're interested in this, then you need to plug in. You can find us on Blue Collar Millionaire Facebook group, shoot us a DM on any of the social media platforms, and go to the website www.bluecollarmillionaire.net, bluecollarmillionaire.net, and find us, get involved with the boardroom if you've got an existing business that you're looking to scale.
See you next time.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.